time for the part of the show where we go back over a cult movie and revisit something that's been out for a little bit longer. We're going to explore some movies that you may not have seen, or maybe some classics that you really love. I'm going to talk about a lot of movies. I'll be watching them all, or I've seen them all, or it's something that's near and dear to my heart. But throughout this, especially in this segment, Cult Movie Corner, feel free to comment, send in ideas for any movies that you might like me to talk about. There might be some that I haven't seen, there might be some that I just absolutely adore. Now, there's a lot of cult movies, and I'm going to be pretty loose with cult movie terms. I'm going to talk about movies that might have had more of an impact after their cinematic release. So no big tentpole movie is going to be talked about in Cult Movie Corner. So today, first movie that we're going to discuss is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This is actually a comic book adaptation again. Yes, I know, I'm a huge nerd. Sorry. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Now, I love this movie so much. I actually saw this movie 4 times in 1 week when it first came out, and every time I went to the cinemas, nobody was there. I to this day, I don't know why people didn't go bonkers for this film. It was so funny. It was so well done. It was so well shot. I mean, this is the epitome of pop movie culture. It was brilliant. It was brilliant on every level. Please, do yourself a favor. Get this movie. Buy this movie. It's cheap. It's not going for much. It doesn't cost that much now. It's been out for quite a long time. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It's based off the Scott Pilgrim comics. There's quite a large comic series of them. A very simple animation style. I haven't read them. I have not read Scott Pilgrim comics at all. I would love to get the series and read them all because they do look really good. I would love to see where they came from, where the story came from. But Scott Pilgrim follows a young Canadian lad. I believe he's 21 or 22. He's out of school. He's a little bit of a loser. He's not like a full-blown loser, but he's kind of drifting, but he's a cool loser, So, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. It follows on the storyline of Scott Pilgrim, who is the hero of the story. Now, it starts off and you see this young guy played by Michael Cera, and this is probably my favorite Michael Cera film that I've ever seen. The only other time I've ever seen him in a film where I liked him so much was at World's End, where he played just a total jerk. He played himself and he was playing a total jerk. It was just hilarious. That's so funny. Anyway. So Michael Cera, this is the most I've ever enjoyed watching him on film. Easily the best. And he's out of school, he's finished, he's a bass guitarist in a band, and that's pretty much all he does. He lives in a tiny little box 1-bedroom apartment with his gay housemate that he shares a bed with. Which again is hilarious. It's so funny, the dynamic between the two. And he has a new girlfriend. Now, his new girlfriend is a 17-year-old Asian schoolgirl named Knives Chow. Now, Knives Chow, really well acted, by the way. All the acting in this film is so well done. It's got dry humor, it's funny cuts. There's a lot in the film that really spoke to me as a pop culture lover, where they would have comic book references and so much on the music side of thing. Like the soundtrack in this film was just brilliant, especially because they're in a band. Sex Bob-omb, very cool band name, I gotta admit, which he plays bass in. But it's also got all of these video game references throughout the film. Anything from Scott Pilgrim needs to pee at one point. So there's a pee bar above his head, and as he pees, it goes down. Little things like that. It's just really funny. You see his brain thinking, and it's like an odometer going back and forwards between which lie he's going to tell, and it falls right in the middle, and he screws it up and says both. So little parts like this. It was just such a brilliant movie, and it was a smaller film. It was definitely a smaller film. It was very over the top. It was very over the top. But they weren't trying to be too huge. But at the end of the day, what happens is Scott meets this girl, the girl of his dreams, Ramona Flowers. She skateboards through his she roller skates through his dreams, and next thing he knows, she opens up the door to his house and it's her. So little cuts like this is just brilliant throughout the whole film. So it'll go between fantasy and reality, but not so much, not like he's imagining things. It's just how it works. Like when he says, "I just had a dream about you," she says that she's got a shortcut that's through his mind. Little things like this is just so brilliant. Then he sees her at a party. There's all these fun through that where he's trying to hide from her but stalk her basically. They finally start to hang out, meet, and they become a bit of an item. Problem is, he's still dating Knives Chow. So he needs to try and figure out how to break up with her. Then he wants to continue with Ramona. All of this happens. It all progresses very fast throughout the movie. Everything happens quite quickly, so it's not dragging along. It doesn't feel like you're wasting a lot of time, but you still get the sense of why everything is happening. So you might have noticed that even though Scott Pilgrim, he's a likable hero in this film, he's still a bit of a jerk. Like he's a bit of a dick, you know? I mean, he was dating a chick, she's a 17-year-old schoolgirl, which is kind of just in itself, it's a little bit, you know, okay. But then he just dumps her because he meets this other chick, and he sort of dumps her after he's already sort of started seeing this other chick, so it's kind of all a little bit dodgy, and even the dumping is a bit of a dick move, like he's sort of a bit of a coward about it. Show progresses, continues on, and then we find out that Ramona has 7 evil exes. Yep. Sounds pretty weird, but 7 evil exes, and Scott needs to battle each of them. Now, every time we get into a battle, it's kind of like an arcade battle style thing where he has to fight them, kind of Street Fighter-ish. They have the fight and everything like that, and you see the guys going punch combos, and I might not be describing it very well, but this really hit home for me. It was so different. I hadn't seen anything else like this before. The way they did it, the way they made it so fun and exciting, and still blended between reality and fantasy and how they did it. Like when Scott Pilgrim would actually beat someone and he'd finally KO, big KO, oh, and then a bunch of coins would just appear on the ground. Like, because that's normal, yeah? So we have all of these different things going through, while at the same time Scott has his relationship problems. He's got to fight these evil exes, and his band is actually in a battle of the bands, and they've got to fight their way up through the bands. So you get to see some really awesome music, the practicing, what's going on in the personal life, and then all of the battles. So as it progresses, it goes on. It's got an amazing finale, which Scott loses, but of course, being in that it's kind of runs along a video game style thing, he has one life up, so he can take a new life and try again. And that's the really cool part, when you see him go back and he does everything over again. So you see it rush through the same scenes where he just goes from the first time needing to take his time to the second time. You can just tell, even he's just like, whatever. Like he just wants to get through it because he wants to get to the boss battle. So this movie was ingenious. I loved it. It was amazing on so many levels. One, it had the comic book culture in it. It had the music, so brilliant music. A lot of it very indie style, but I liked it. I really got into it actually. Even one of the bands, I started getting some of the albums from this music. It's one of those soundtracks that you can actually listen to and just really, really enjoy. So even just look that up. If you're not sure, have a look at that and see some of the film clips that come from it, which was really, really good. On top of all that, it had the video game culture in it as well. So we had all of the style that came with that, the ideas, the boss battles, the fights, all very stylized, of course. But the way they did it, it was just so good. It was so, and this film makes you happy. This film really makes you happy. It's just a fun movie that you don't have to take too seriously, that you can just get into and enjoy. Please watch this film. Do yourself a favor and watch this film. If you don't like it, you must hate puppies because, puppy hater. Yeah, I said it. You hate puppies. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, fantastic movie. Go get this movie, buy this movie. If you've got a streaming platform that you're watching things on and you're paying for, do that. Don't download it illegally, please, because, that's wrong. So don't do it. Buy it. That has been the first episode of Cult Movie Corner. I've got a lot of exciting things to talk about down the track. I'm really looking forward to them. But again, please, if there's anything that you would like me to review, let me know. Write it in, send it in. I would really like to hear your thoughts.